As I was eating my breakfast, a German plane came over, and during the night, two tanks rolled up on either side of that building, and that German warplane strafed those tanks. Well, one of the bullets came through the bore above me, and it pierced the edge of my helmet and sprayed my face with.
In the tempest of conflict, the human mind bears the harshest battles, with profound psychological effects long outliving the war itself. This exploration centers on 10 such devastating consequences, casting light on the silent and often overlooked trauma endured by those affected by war, starting with the pervasively tormenting experience of post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD. Number 1. Post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD. A frequent, terrifying repercussion of war is post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD, an affliction where individuals grapple with severe anxiety, nightmares, and uncontrollable thoughts and memories of the horrifying events they witnessed or experienced. While it can manifest in anyone who has lived through a traumatic event, the prevalence of PTSD in combat veterans and war-torn civilians is staggeringly high. PTSD is a complex and debilitating condition. In the aftermath of war, survivors often find themselves trapped in the memories of life-threatening situations. They replay these traumatic events, experiencing the same terror as when they initially occurred. This persistent reliving is typically induced by triggers, including sounds, images, or even smells that remind them of the traumatic incident. Hyperarousal, an exaggerated startle response, is another cardinal symptom of PTSD. The slightest hint of danger may send an individual into a state of high alert, as if they were still on the battlefield. This constant state of vigilance significantly disrupts their daily life, making tasks like sleeping, concentrating, or carrying out mundane chores incredibly challenging. Avoidance is another typical behavior of individuals with PTSD. To escape their traumatic memories, they often avoid places, people, thoughts, or situations that might remind them of the traumatic event. This tendency can lead to social isolation, as they withdraw from friends and family, exacerbating feelings of loneliness and despair. The psychological turmoil caused by PTSD can spill over to impact physical health as well. Numerous studies have linked PTSD to a higher risk of cardiovascular disease, gastrointestinal problems, musculoskeletal disorders, and other health conditions. These comorbidities further complicate the recovery process and overall quality of life. A particularly cruel aspect of PTSD is the duration of its effects. Unlike physical wounds that may heal over time, PTSD lingers on, often for years or even decades after the traumatic event. Treatment can help, but the path to recovery is typically long and difficult. Many individuals battle recurring episodes throughout their lives, a testament to the profound and enduring impact of war. Furthermore, the stigma associated with mental health disorders, especially in military contexts, can be a formidable barrier to seeking help. Many veterans fear being perceived as weak or flawed and thus suffer in silence, worsening their condition. This societal and self-stigma underscores the need for greater understanding, acceptance, and support for those living with PTSD. In conclusion, PTSD is a devastating psychological effect of war, profoundly impacting not only the afflicted individual, but their family, community, and society at large. It is a haunting reminder of war's reach beyond the battlefield, into the psyche of those it touches, causing immeasurable suffering long after the guns have fallen silent. The understanding and addressing of PTSD are not merely medical necessities, but also societal obligations, critical for the collective healing in the aftermath of war. Number 2. Depression. In the wake of war, the sheer magnitude of loss, fear, and despair leaves a lasting imprint on the human psyche, often manifesting as depression. This mood disorder goes beyond the common feelings of sadness or grief, extending into a constant state of low mood, anhedonia, lack of interest in activities, and feelings of worthlessness that can severely impair daily functioning. War creates an environment that breeds depression. On the battlefield, soldiers witness unthinkable violence and destruction, which can fundamentally alter their outlook on life and themselves. The constant fear for one's life, the death of comrades, and the morally challenging decisions they are forced to make all contribute to a sense of hopelessness and despair, setting the stage for depression. Depression among war veterans is particularly concerning. They frequently face the challenging task of readjusting to civilian life upon their return. They may struggle to reconcile their war experiences with the reality of peaceful existence, feeling alienated and disconnected from their pre-war identities. For some, returning to their normal routine may seem trivial compared to the high-stakes environment of war, leading to feelings of emptiness and purposelessness. Depression also commonly afflicts the civilian population in war-torn regions. The loss of loved ones, homes, and livelihoods can bring about a profound sense of grief and hopelessness. Even after the end of conflict, the task of rebuilding lives amidst the ruins can be overwhelming, further perpetuating depressive symptoms. Symptoms of depression include a pervasive feeling of sadness, loss of interest or pleasure in activities, feelings of guilt or worthlessness, difficulty concentrating, and recurrent thoughts of death or suicide. Depression's physical manifestation might include fatigue, sleep disturbances, and changes in appetite, further disrupting an individual's day-to-day life. Depression, like most mental disorders, does not occur in isolation. It frequently coexists with other psychological disorders like PTSD, anxiety, and substance use disorders, compounding the individual's distress. This comorbidity makes diagnosis and treatment more challenging, requiring an integrated approach to manage the interlinked conditions. The devastating effects of war extend beyond the physical scars and the toll on infrastructures. They seep into the very fabric of individual psyches, often catalyzing depression, a persistent, painful state of despair that tinges every aspect of life with sadness. The prevalence of depression in war-torn societies and among veterans serves as a stark reminder of war's insidious effects, ones that endure long after the actual conflict has ceased. Recognizing and addressing depression in these contexts is an imperative step towards individual and communal healing. Number 3. Anxiety disorders. War, by its very nature, is a potent catalyst for fear, uncertainty, and danger, conditions that pave the way for a multitude of anxiety disorders. Characterized by excessive, persistent worry and fear about everyday situations, these disorders significantly impair the individual's ability to lead a normal life. Among those affected by war, the incidence of various forms of anxiety disorders, such as generalized anxiety disorder, GAD, panic disorder, social anxiety disorder, and others, is remarkably high. Generalized anxiety disorder, GAD, characterized by chronic and excessive worry about a variety of everyday problems, is a common consequence of war. Survivors, both combatants and civilians, live with a pervasive sense of unease, anticipating disaster around every corner. This constant apprehension can manifest in physical symptoms such as fatigue, restlessness, and sleep disturbances. Combatants often develop panic disorder, marked by recurrent, unexpected panic attacks. The high-intensity combat situations they are thrust into can trigger such attacks, causing a sudden surge of intense fear accompanied by physical symptoms like heart palpitations, trembling, and shortness of breath. These attacks can occur long after the war has ended, triggered by stimuli that remind them of traumatic experiences. Social anxiety disorder is another form of anxiety disorder seen among war survivors. The struggle to reintegrate into society and the fear of being judged or misunderstood due to their traumatic experiences can lead to intense fear of social interactions. They may avoid social situations entirely, further isolating them and potentially worsening their overall mental health. A unique aspect of anxiety disorders is their persistence. Even in the absence of immediate threat or danger, individuals with these disorders live in a state of constant worry, their minds envisioning the worst-case scenarios. This unremitting stress can take a severe toll on their physical health, leading to conditions such as heart disease, gastrointestinal problems, and a weakened immune system. Treatment of anxiety disorders typically involves psychotherapy, medication, or a combination of both. Cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, has proven particularly effective in managing these disorders by helping individuals identify and change thought patterns that lead to anxious feelings. However, the stigmatization of mental health issues and lack of access to proper care in post-war settings often act as barriers to effective treatment. Anxiety disorders serve as a poignant illustration of war's extensive psychological damage, echoing its terror long after the cessation of active conflict. They encapsulate a stark reality of living with relentless fear and worry, casting a long shadow over the lives of those affected. Addressing these disorders is not only vital for individual well-being, but also pivotal for the larger societal healing process in the aftermath of war. Number 4. Substance use disorders. One of the less visible yet equally devastating psychological effects of war is the emergence and escalation of substance use disorders, SUDs. This term encompasses patterns of substance use that result in significant impairment or distress, including the misuse of alcohol, illicit drugs, prescription medications, or other psychoactive substances. The rates of SUDs among war veterans and survivors are disconcertingly high, as individuals may turn to substances as a form of self-medication to cope with the psychological toll of their experiences. Alcohol use disorder is notably prevalent among war veterans. The consumption of alcohol, often viewed as a socially acceptable way to unwind or cope with stress, can quickly spiral into heavy drinking and alcohol dependence. The numbing effect of alcohol may temporarily alleviate symptoms of PTSD, depression, or anxiety, but its chronic use only exacerbates these conditions, creating a vicious cycle of worsening mental health and escalating alcohol consumption. Illicit drug use, including cannabis, opioids, or stimulants, is another aspect of SUDs prevalent in post-war contexts. Soldiers may initially use these substances to combat fatigue, heighten alertness, or dull their emotional response during active duty. However, the relief these substances offer is fleeting, and over time the individuals may find themselves dependent on these substances, giving rise to a substance use disorder. Prescription drug misuse, particularly of pain medications and sedatives, is also a significant concern. War injuries often require strong painkillers for management, leading to a high risk of developing a substance use disorder. Likewise, sedatives prescribed for sleep disorders or anxiety can also be misused, contributing to the problem. SUDs carry substantial health risks, including an increased risk of overdose, accidents, and a range of physical health problems like liver disease, cardiovascular disorders, and cognitive impairment. They also contribute to social problems, including job loss, relationship difficulties, and legal issues. Treatment approaches for SUDs typically involve a combination of medication and behavioral therapies with the aim to reduce substance use and manage co-occurring conditions. Rehabilitation programs, support groups, and harm reduction strategies also play vital roles in the recovery process. Number 5. Sleep disorders. Among the ripple effects of war, sleep disorders stand as a significant yet often overlooked consequence. These disorders, ranging from insomnia to nightmares to sleep-related breathing disorders, are commonly reported by war survivors and veterans. The incessant turmoil, fear, and stress experienced during war can disrupt the body's sleep patterns, causing substantial distress and impairment in daily functioning. Insomnia, characterized by persistent difficulty falling asleep or staying asleep, is notably prevalent in post-war contexts. The turmoil and stress of war can leave the mind in a heightened state of arousal, making it difficult for individuals to relax and fall asleep, leading to chronic sleep deprivation and fatigue. Nightmares and sleep-related panic attacks are another common manifestation of sleep disorders among war survivors. Termed trauma-related nightmares, these are vivid, distressing dreams that force the individual to relive their traumatic experiences. These nightmares can induce a fear of sleep, resulting in further sleep deprivation and exacerbating the psychological distress. Sleep-related breathing disorders, such as sleep apnea, are also reported at higher rates among war veterans, particularly those with PTSD. These disorders involve problems with breathing during sleep, leading to poor sleep quality and excessive daytime sleepiness. The physiological stress experienced during war and the associated psychological disorders might contribute to the development of these conditions. The impact of sleep disorders extends beyond just fatigue and sleepiness. Chronic sleep deprivation is linked to a host of health problems, including cardiovascular disease, obesity, diabetes, and impaired immune function. Moreover, sleep disturbances can worsen the symptoms of coexisting mental health disorders like PTSD, depression, and anxiety, creating a complex interplay of conditions that amplify each other. From a psychological perspective, sleep disorders can significantly impair cognitive functions. Attention, memory, decision-making abilities, and mood regulation can all be adversely affected by poor sleep. For war survivors, this can pose additional challenges in their reintegration process, as they may struggle to resume their pre-war responsibilities and routines. Sleep disorders, while not as conspicuous as some other psychological effects of war, represent a significant element of the mental health crisis post-conflict. Their high prevalence among war survivors underscores the need for adequate recognition, assessment, and treatment of these conditions as part of comprehensive post-war healthcare. They serve as a stark reminder that the trauma of war can permeate even the sanctuary of sleep, inflicting its damage day and night. Number 6. Moral injury. In the realm of war-related psychological trauma, moral injury stands as a distinct and profound consequence. This term refers to the deep psychological distress that results from actions, or lack of them, which violate one's moral or ethical code. Soldiers, humanitarian aid workers, and civilians alike can experience moral injury during war, struggling with intense feelings of guilt, shame, and existential crisis. At the heart of moral injury is the concept of moral dissonance, the conflict between one's actions, or inactions, and their moral beliefs. War often thrusts individuals into situations where they must make choices that starkly contrast with their ethical values. This may involve participating in or witnessing acts of violence, failing to prevent harm to others, or making life-or-death decisions under extreme pressure. These actions can shatter their moral framework, leaving them with a profound sense of guilt and shame. Moral injury differs from PTSD in that it involves a deep sense of regret and moral failing rather than fear-based trauma. While PTSD often revolves around fear, helplessness, or horror, moral injury grapples with the violation of personal moral codes and the subsequent self-condemnation. Yet it's common for individuals to suffer from both, given the often morally challenging and traumatic nature of war. The symptoms of moral injury can be deeply distressing. Individuals may experience intense guilt, remorse, and shame, coupled with feelings of worthlessness, despair, and self-loathing. They may grapple with anger towards themselves or others, and may struggle with forgiving themselves for their perceived moral failings. This can often lead to social withdrawal, self-destructive behaviors, and even thoughts of suicide. Addressing moral injury requires a unique therapeutic approach that goes beyond managing symptoms to engaging with the moral and spiritual dimensions of the trauma. This could involve various forms of therapy, including cognitive behavioral therapy, narrative therapy, and spiritual counseling. Therapeutic interventions often focus on helping individuals process their guilt and shame, reconstruct their moral identity, and find ways to make amends or seek forgiveness. Number 7. Survivor's guilt. Survivor's guilt, a distinct psychological phenomenon, is an often unforeseen repercussion of war. This guilt, deeply ingrained and intensely personal, arises when individuals survive a traumatic event that others did not. It's frequently experienced by war veterans and civilians who've lived through armed conflict, particularly those who've lost comrades, family members, or friends. Survivor's guilt manifests in a variety of ways. Some individuals may feel guilty for the simple fact that they are alive while others are not. Others may feel remorse over what they did or did not do during the conflict, from perceived failures in their duties to an inability to save a fellow soldier or civilian. Some may feel a sense of guilt over the relief they feel at being alive, viewing it as a betrayal of those who perished. The burden of survivor's guilt can be immensely heavy. Individuals may experience a range of psychological symptoms, including intense feelings of guilt, shame, and sadness. They may replay the traumatic event over and over in their mind, dwelling on the what-ifs and if-onlys, further exacerbating their guilt. They may also experience symptoms of depression, anxiety, and PTSD, indicating the intertwining nature of these conditions. Survivors' guilt can also lead to self-punishment and self-isolation. Feeling undeserving of their survival, individuals may engage in self-destructive behaviors or withdraw from social interactions. They may struggle with daily functioning, finding little joy or purpose in life. This can create a cycle of guilt, isolation, and despair, further entrenching their psychological distress. Group therapy and support groups can also be beneficial, providing a safe space for individuals to share their experiences and feelings with others who've had similar experiences. Hearing others' stories and receiving validation and support can help alleviate feelings of isolation and normalize their guilt. In some cases, engaging in memorial activities or acts of remembrance can help individuals honor those they've lost and find a sense of closure. Such activities can serve as a tangible outlet for their guilt and grief, helping them navigate their healing journey. Number 8. Traumatic brain injury-induced psychiatric disorders. Amid the psychological ramifications of war, the role of traumatic brain injuries, TBIs, in precipitating psychiatric disorders is a significant concern. TBIs, often resulting from explosions, gunfire, or other combat-related incidents, can lead to a range of psychiatric conditions, profoundly affecting an individual's mental well-being and quality of life. TBIs can lead to a variety of psychiatric disorders depending on the severity of the injury and the specific areas of the brain affected. The most common conditions include depression, anxiety disorders, post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD, and substance use disorders. Additionally, cognitive disorders characterized by problems with memory, attention, and executive functioning can arise from TBIs. Depression is commonly reported following TBIs, with individuals experiencing persistent feelings of sadness, loss of interest in previously enjoyed activities, and a range of physical symptoms. This may result from the physiological changes in the brain caused by the injury, or it may be a psychological response to the changes and limitations imposed by the TBI. Anxiety disorders, including generalized anxiety disorder, panic disorder, and social anxiety disorder, are also prevalent among TBI survivors. These conditions involve excessive, persistent worry and fear, which can significantly impair daily functioning. The anxiety may be directly related to the TBI, such as fears about health or recovery, or it may be an indirect response to the changes and uncertainties brought about by the injury. PTSD is another common condition among TBI survivors. While PTSD is typically associated with psychological trauma, TBIs can increase the risk of PTSD, possibly due to the overlapping symptoms and the distressing nature of the incident that caused the TBI. Symptoms of PTSD, such as flashbacks, nightmares, and hyperarousal, can exacerbate the cognitive and emotional difficulties experienced by TBI survivors. Treating TBI-induced psychiatric disorders presents unique challenges. Medical professionals must manage the physical health issues, cognitive impairments, and psychiatric conditions simultaneously, requiring an integrated, multidisciplinary approach. Cognitive rehabilitation, psychotherapy, medication, and support groups are commonly employed treatment strategies, aiming to improve cognitive functioning, manage psychiatric symptoms, and provide emotional support. Number 9. Chronic pain and somatic complaints. Among the labyrinth of war's psychological impacts, chronic pain and somatic complaints emerge as deeply interwoven threads. While they are fundamentally physical symptoms, the persistent discomfort and the strain of coping with it can lead to significant psychological distress, exacerbating the mental health burden of war survivors. Chronic pain, defined as pain persisting beyond the normal healing period of about 3 months, is a common aftermath of physical injuries sustained during war. This can be due to nerve damage, musculoskeletal injuries, or the lingering effects of traumatic brain injuries, TBIs. The pain may manifest in specific regions, such as phantom limb pain in amputees, or it may be widespread, as in conditions like fibromyalgia. Somatic complaints, on the other hand, refer to physical symptoms that cannot be fully explained by a medical condition. These symptoms, which include headaches, fatigue, and gastrointestinal problems, are often related to psychological stress or trauma. They are particularly common among individuals with anxiety disorders, depression, and post-traumatic stress disorder. PTSD. The interplay between chronic pain, somatic complaints, and mental health is complex and multifaceted. Chronic pain can lead to a range of psychological responses, including anxiety about the pain itself or its implications, feelings of helplessness and despair, and social isolation due to physical limitations. These reactions can exacerbate pre-existing mental health conditions or precipitate new ones, creating a cycle of physical pain and psychological distress. Managing chronic pain and somatic complaints requires a holistic, biopsychosocial approach. This involves addressing the physical symptoms, the psychological distress, and the social impacts concurrently. Medications, physical therapies, and complementary treatments like acupuncture and massage can help manage the physical symptoms. Psychological interventions, such as cognitive behavioral therapy, can help individuals develop effective pain coping strategies, reduce their psychological distress, and improve their quality of life. Number 10. Complicated grief and bereavement. War invariably brings with it loss and bereavement, and for some, this grief process becomes a profound psychological struggle known as complicated grief. Unlike normal grief, which gradually lessens over time and allows the bereaved to return to their regular activities, complicated grief is more intense and persistent, often resembling a state of clinical depression or anxiety disorder. Complicated grief, sometimes called prolonged grief disorder, arises from the loss of a close family member, friend, or comrade during war, causing a persistent and debilitating form of grief that lasts significantly longer than typical bereavement. It's characterized by an inability to accept the loss, obsessive thoughts about the deceased, intense longing and yearning, and a feeling of emptiness or meaninglessness. The bereaved may also experience intrusive thoughts or images related to the death, intense emotional pain, and a preoccupation with sorrow that prevents them from engaging in normal activities. They may struggle to imagine a fulfilling life without the deceased, and there can be a sense of bitterness or anger about the death. Some individuals also feel a loss of identity, particularly if their roles were deeply intertwined with the deceased. Complicated grief can severely impair a person's functioning and well-being. It can lead to depression, anxiety, and post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD, as well as physical health problems such as insomnia, weight loss or gain, and increased risk of cardiovascular disease. In extreme cases, it can lead to suicidal thoughts and behaviors. Support groups can also be beneficial, providing a space for the bereaved to share their feelings, hear others' experiences, and gain a sense of community and understanding. In some cases, medications may be used to manage co-occurring conditions like depression or anxiety.